And I'm especially happy that the high school kids are here because I think this may not resonate with you. It may resonate with you a little bit, but this is a glimpse of your future. And you can see right here, I can't wait to lead. And that's the theme of my presentation, all right? Born and raised Wellstonian. I was taught early on in my career as I started becoming a leader that you always want a good attention grabber so that people are paying attention to the screen. So this is an actual video of me from several years ago, and this was one of my modes of transportation of how I got to work. If it works. Hold on. How about that for an attention grabber? I'm already messing it up, huh?
You are the equipment.
Okay, it's the equipment. No, I'll skip the attention grabber. It was just basically me jumping out of an airplane. No big deal. From 12,000 feet.
I don't see that.
So my job in the military, I was a JTAC, Joint Terminal Attack Controller. Jerry, yourself and Mr. Tripp, you may remember that. They used to call them FACs, Forward Air Controllers. Okay? And what a JTAC did, a JTAC from a forward position just directed airstrikes onto the enemy. Oftentimes, you have to be very close to the enemy to be able to get the precision strike onto the target. So that's what I did for the Air Force for 24 years. Over the course of my 12 deployments, I served with a lot of elite units. Out of this list here, the British SAS was my favorite unit to serve with. I loved going out on targets with those guys. They were a lot of fun. And then the Central Intelligence Agency was my least favorite. That is not a joke. It was not fun working with those guys. And they got me in trouble quite a bit. Over the course of my 12 deployments, I estimate that I dropped probably 200,000 pounds of ordnance. Laser-guided bombs such as this one right here. So that's just a little bit of a glimpse of what I did in the military, kind of an overall overview of my job. So the purpose of the presentation, really up here are these three check marks. I want to share some very personal stories. Obviously, we'd be here all day if I shared every story from every deployment, so I just picked out a few that I think everybody would like. Small community and the impact it had on me, and Wellston was always with me, and I think you'll see that will resonate throughout the presentation. So let's go back to the 1990s real quick. Let's all take a little trip back to the 1990s in Wellston. Wellston Rocket football, right? Every Friday. The bowling alley. We're always hanging out at the bowling alley, having a good time. Rocket pizza. Welcome back. All right? The Coal Festival, or Ohilco, however you want to say it. The Wellston City Pool. Bring it back. Jerry's Movie Theater. You know what? You go to a movie theater now, and it's nothing like when you walked into Jerry's. Low lighting. He's there serving the drinks. He's taking your ticket. It was truly something that I cherished and remembered. Many first dates in your movie theater, sir. Super America, Main Express. You guys probably don't even know what Super America was. It was pretty super. Lake Alma. Cruising around in circles all night. We did it here, we did it in Jackson. I don't know why, but the gas prices now, I don't think we want to bring it back. Ski Pop. How can you forget Ski Pop, right? Skateland. I mean, who didn't have a birthday party at Skateland at some point early on? Giovanni's. I remember when Nathan opened Rocket Pizza, he's like, I'm still going to order from Giovanni's because I love pizza that much. That's awesome. Now, pumpkin busting. Now, I don't know much about it. I heard from Nathan. It's basically where you go grab pumpkins off people's porch and bust them in the street. I was at home studying, so I don't know that much about pumpkin busting, but Nathan give me all the intelligence. So I know you look at this picture, this is me in high school, you must be thinking, why did I not go into male modeling? But I didn't. So my dream, I wanted to leave Wellston as soon as humanly possible. I just couldn't wait to get out of this town. Like there's way better things out there. I gotta get out of here. Okay, Wellston's boring. All right. So I left 2 weeks after graduation. First night in basic training. And I think most guys will tell you that first night in basic training, it's a little weird. But I'm finally away from this little town of Wellston. So why was I crying my eyes out? I did. I laid there and cried. I miss my mom. I missed you too, Dad, but I miss my mom. So what was it about Wellston I missed? I realized that Wellston had a unique culture. This took me some time to realize this, but as you grow up and when you guys leave and go away from Wellston, you'll understand what this culture is all about. Okay? Small town life becomes part of you. It really does. And again, you don't miss it until you're gone. I miss the people, I miss my family, and I miss the kindness and simplicity of a place like Wellston. Okay? And throughout my 24 years, Wellston was never far from my mind, and I think that will shine through in the slides. And that's my hope here, that you see that Wellston was never far from my mind. Okay, so circa 2002, Afghanistan, Asadabad, all right? Extremely unforgiving mountainous terrain. That's a picture of me right there, and that was our latrine. Our job was to kill the Taliban and kill bin Laden. So back then, we had intel that he was still inside Afghanistan and that he was trying to make it to the Pakistan border. So that's where we were. We were on the Pakistan border. Our job was to hunt down bin Laden, and we were on combat missions every single day of our lives. We had no running water, no toilets, no hot food, no showers, no heat, no AC, no protection. Malaria, dysentery, and MRSA was like every day. I actually got malaria and almost died from it a year later. I didn't know I had it, and I was sick for a year with it. And we got attacked every single day. We had no protection. Just every single day we were attacked. So what does this have to do with Wellston? Well, here's Wellston, and here's Asadabad, and then this is a picture of our little camp we lived in. And so one day I called home on a mission. Now we only got maybe one or two times a month or every 2 months where we could call home, and we only got to talk for a couple of minutes. So one day I was out on a mission with just a few guys, and there was not a lot going on. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to grab the sat phone, a satellite phone, and I'll call home and talk to Mom and Dad. Because I had talked to my then wife a few days ago, and I'm like, I'm going to take the opportunity. So I called home, and I'm talking to Dad, and Dad's just telling me boring Wellston stories. There's a pothole up there on Main Street, this going on there, this going on there. But I will tell you, it was just very comforting. I felt like I was back in Wellston. Every time I talked to Mom and Dad, I felt like I was back here. It was very comforting. It's like sitting down with a comfort food. It was just comforting to hear about Wellston. And Dad, if you remember that phone call, about a minute in, explosions and gunfire going off. And I'm like, hey, Dad, I got to get off the phone. And I remember getting off the phone with him. I didn't talk to you again for a few months. And I think Mom and Dad were probably thinking, what the heck was that all about? I don't know if Dad ever told Mom, but yeah, we got attacked right in the middle of talking to Dad. I had to hang up and do my job. But the point is, calling home, I always felt close to Wellston when I called home and heard those boring stories about Wellston. All right. So here's another story. Same place. This is just a blown-up picture of where we live in Asadabad. The value of life you see up there. The value of life. I think everyone in this room values life wholeheartedly. So right here, this is where these things were, mortars. Mr. Tripp and Jerry know what a mortar tube looks like. And what we would have to do is every couple days we'd have to register them or zero those mortars. That's where you fire the mortar and make sure that it's going to land where you want it to land when you need it in combat. So one day they were registering their mortars, our guys, and one of the rounds went just over top of this mountain. Just kind of flew over top, so they dialed it in, fixed it, registered it. It's good to go. It's ready when we need it. And we never saw where that round went. So about 3 hours later, an old man from the local village, an old Afghan man, he came up carrying a young boy in his arms. And we knew immediately the child was dead. He was a teenager. And we could tell also we knew immediately it was from the mortar round that we sent just a little bit too long. So the man was not crying, and he wasn't sad. And he was angry because this was the last relative he had to work his fields. And he said, and through the interpreter, he told us, hey, I'm here. I need money. I need like 4 years of compensation, because in 4 years he would have left and went into Kabul and done something else. And I remember that being this being my first deployment, I really learned what the value of life meant at that moment. This guy was not sad that his grandson had died. He just wanted money because he needed compensation for now he didn't have someone to work his fields. And that has always stuck with me, and it's a good lesson in how different cultures value life. So it's a story I've only told to a few people. So Iraq 2003, the Iraq invasion. So I sit in a place called RR Saudi Arabia for 2 weeks, waiting on the orders to invade. Now, during that 2 weeks, there was still a chance that Saddam Hussein would say, okay, I give up. But secretly, we're all like, man, I want to go in. I hope he doesn't give up. We want to go in and take him out. The realization set in that we were going in 3 days early. So I was with the Rangers. We were going to go in 3 days before the main invasion. We were going to take out 2 airfields and a dam. And I started getting scared because I'm like, okay, this isn't Afghanistan. This is Iraq. We're going up against Saddam's troops. Were formidable. They knew what they were doing. They were well trained and they'd been fighting the Iranians for years. So I was scared. During my time there, though, guess what I received? Tons of letters, to the point where the mailroom guy's like, dude, how are you getting so many letters so quickly? I'm like, well, my mom has the address, and people from Wellston are sending me letters. And I got a ton of letters from Wellston, and I loved reading them. They got me pumped up. I'm ready to go do something that I was scared to do. But I got one final letter before going to Iraq from a man I admired deeply. And there's only 3 people in this room who know who that man is. They're not going to say his name, and I'm not going to say his name. But one of the people listening can go tell that man that I mentioned him in the presentation. But I admired this man. I knew him from the day I grew up. And he sent me a letter. It was one of the last letters I got before going into Iraq for the invasion. The letter was very short. It told me good luck and give me some words of wisdom, some scripture. And then the gentleman ended the letter with 2 words. Kick ass. And I kept that in my mind the entire time I was in Iraq. This time in Iraq. I went 7 different times, but this was my first trip to Iraq. But all the letters that I got, anytime I had a spare moment, which was not often, I would pull out a random letter and I would read it. And I felt connected to Wellston, and it kept me going. It encouraged me. So when you're supporting your troops, or you're given some kind of letter, or you're praying for them in church, trust me, it matters a lot. Because those letters meant the world to me. And when I did get a free chance, I read those letters. Afghanistan, 2004. So this would be my 3rd deployment, my 2nd one to Afghanistan. So this is my buddy, Mike O'Neill, from Mansfield, Ohio. So obviously we became friends. He's an Army Ranger, and at 22 years old, he was already an experienced combat veteran. He had deployed twice before, just like I had. Huge Buckeye fan, right? Small town guy, just like me. So naturally, we struck up a friendship. So me and Mike obviously talked Buckeye football. He talked about Mansfield, and I talked about Wellston, and it just seemed like we had a lot in common. Because growing up in Ohio, in a small town, you could talk to anybody from a small town, you're going to have a lot in common with them, right? So 17 November 2004, we were in Bagram. That's where we were operating out of. I'm flying into missions 4 days before the big game, Ohio State versus Michigan. So me and Mike had struck up a plan. Hey, if we go on a mission on the day of the game, let's get back and we'll get to the chow hall and we'll try to catch a quarter or 2. If we're lucky, we won't have a mission and we'll get to watch the entire game. So we were all pumped up. Ohio State, Michigan week, right? I mean, most people in here are Ohio State fans, I'm assuming. So you know what the week is like. It's just like you're pumped up, you're ready to go. And me and Mike were hoping to catch some of the game. On 17 November, though, we went out on a mission and came back, and Mike had an accident with his hand grenade. And he blew up his arm and had some devastating brain trauma. So we went from talking about the Buckeyes to he's fighting for his life now. On 20 November, OSU beat Michigan 3 days after he sustained the grenade injury. And then on 21 November, the day after the game, he died in Germany. And OSU. The game is always kind of bittersweet for me. But the reason I'm telling you this story is because this is just one of many. I don't know how many guys I buried, or saw die. But the point of this is, small town guys connect. He talked about Mansfield. I talked about Wellston. He could very just as easily be at his Rotary Club right now, right around my age, talking to the Rotary Club, talking about his buddy Mark who died on a mission. But yeah, that I just wanted to talk about my buddy Sergeant O'Neill. Funny side note though, I actually got in touch with Archie Griffin. I don't know how I did it, but I got in touch with Archie Griffin, talked to him on the phone. Archie Griffin sent me a football signed by Archie Griffin to Mike's mom and dad, and I was able to take a football to them, and they put it up in their Buckeye room, and yeah, it was nice getting to do that. I assumed that being a small town guy, he would have done something like that for me, and come back to Wellston and give my mom and dad a football from Archie Griffin. So the next two lessons illustrate some key lessons that I learned growing up in Wellston. So you high school kids, pay attention here, okay? All right. You stay committed to your community through good times and bad. You value life. Life is short. Okay? You take care of your neighbors. I've learned that from the time I can remember. And then you value your friends. Sometimes you may not get along with them, but you always value them. All right? So, the injury. In 2006, I got blown off a roof, fell a couple stories, landed on my head, and broke my back pretty badly. Doctor said I'd have to medically retire. It was a pretty rough point for me. It was pretty devastating. In this picture here, I'm in Afghanistan on a lot of morphine. All right? You guys see Wellston here. What do you think's next? Once again, the support from Wellston was overwhelming. Wellston, I valued my friends. They valued me. I was a Wellstonian, a neighbor. They took care of me. All right? Wellston embodied these four values that I grew up learning here in Wellston. The support was overwhelming. Most people here probably remember it. Sending me letters, calling me, encouraging me. Nathan Mollahan, his church did some amazing things for me that I didn't feel like I deserved. I just got injured. To me, it wasn't no big deal. So I'm going to take these four principles, and I just want to show you something that I think is kind of neat. But be forewarned, it's kind of sad too. So in 2006, when I broke my back before the mission, my friend, Master Sergeant Josh Gavlik, told me, he said, "Hey Mark, I think you need to put on what's called a long whip antenna, because you get this radio on your back and you get this antenna." I'm like, "Dude, I don't want to. It weighs too much and it'll be flopping around all night." He goes, "Dude, I think you should, because you're going to need to maybe talk to me. And I'm going to be like 30 miles away." I'm like, "All right, I'll throw it on." This likely saved my life, because with that long antenna behind my head, when my head hit, it didn't allow my neck to snap all the way back, and it would have severed my spinal cord. I would have died right there on that mountain. But that likely saved my life. So value your friends, right? So Mike Chevry, another great friend of mine, he coordinated a high-risk mountain extraction rescue. What they wanted to do was carry me off the mountain. Had they done that, again, it would have probably killed me, because I had spinal fragments close to my spinal cord, so it probably would have killed me. But he would not allow them to do that, and he coordinated a high-risk mountain extraction. They hoisted me 100 feet up in the air in a basket. It was crazy. So I was transported off that mountain when I broke my back to a forward surgical unit to get stabilized. And the first doctor I saw, I'm looking up at him. I'm on morphine, and the guy's name was Dr. Paul. And he goes, "I think I know you." I'm like, "You look familiar to me, sir." He's the guy that had replaced my ACL the year before. So kind of small world in the middle of Afghanistan. This guy that fixed my knee. All right. So then I was transported from Bagram to Germany to Buffalo, New York, to Fort Gordon, and then to home. And I thought it was kind of poetic that I went to Fort Gordon, because I grew up listening to Dad talk about Fort Gordon, because that's where he went to training in the Army. So kind of neat, right? So fast forward a year, I did recover. I finally got better and didn't have to medically retire. And my good buddy Mike, we were actually in Iraq. It would have been my, I think, 4th or 5th deployment overall, my 3rd trip to Iraq. I'm standing right next to him. This is the guy that extracted me up the mountain. Heard a bullet, a sniper shot him. He's alive. He lived, but it's funny that he extracted me up the mountain and took care of me, and now I'm standing there loading him into a gurney as he's getting transported off the battlefield after he got shot. We're still friends to this day, and I love Mike. He's a great guy. But value life, value your friends. Good lesson there. So fast forward 2011, it was time for me to leave. I was going from Fort Benning to Fort Bragg, and my buddy Josh, he got me a customized .45 caliber pistol. This thing was nice. I loved it. It was the best going away gift I ever got. And I gave him a shotgun. I loaned it to him because he's like, hey, I want to teach Tristan. Tristan's his young boy. He's like, he can't really shoot the .45, but I want to start teaching him to shoot a shotgun. Can I borrow yours? I'm like, of course you can borrow it. I'll get it back from you whenever. So 3 years later, Josh died in a military parachuting accident. So life is short, right? And I was there at his funeral, taking care of his wife, now widowed. They have 6 kids, and it was a tough time. 1 year later, Josh's youngest daughter died in a swimming pool accident. She drowned. Okay, one of the 6 kids. But stay committed to your community. So here I am back 1 year later, helping Josh's widowed wife bury their youngest daughter. But that's part of staying committed to your community. And then date to be determined, but Sergeant Gavlick's son, when he graduates the Air Force Academy, because every year we honor Josh, and his kids all come and show up in the Zoom call, and it's really cool. He's been talking about wanting a pistol. I'm going to re-customize the .45, and I'm going to give him the pistol that his dad gave me and pass it down to him. So anyway, it's just funny how the circle of life works, right? It's just funny, all this stuff, it all blends together. Life is short. Value your friends. Value your community. Be there for your neighbors. And anyway, I thought that'd be a story you all might appreciate. Okay, so combat's nasty, and we're getting close to the end here. We're almost done. But sometimes combat is good. And if you look up here at picture number 1, I labeled that friendship. So every day we would go out to the range, we would do demolitions, we would shoot, we would practice, and when we weren't out on missions, we were training. This kid right here, every day, he wanted to arm wrestle me. I taught him how to arm wrestle, and I'm not joking, this kid legitimately thought he was going to beat me every time we arm wrestled. I formed a friendship with him. He didn't speak a lick of English, I didn't speak a lick of Pashto, but we communicated. And I never let him beat me, but he always, every time, thought he was gonna beat me, right? So picture number 2 here, love as Christ did. So here's why I say that. Back then, I knew God and I followed, I knew Scripture, but I didn't truly follow Christ. I wasn't truly obedient to Him. But one thing I did know is that we're to love like Christ. And when I would see these kids when we were out on missions and we were doing anything with them, I looked at them and I loved them. I loved every one of those kids, and I would say we all need to love as Christ did. These kids didn't know us. At times they thought we were there they didn't know if we were there to hurt them or save them, and over time they learned that we were there to protect them. But anytime I saw these little kids, you see these little kids in the pictures, I always just had a place in my heart and loved them, hoping that I was giving them a better life. Sacrifice. So oftentimes when we go out and make contact with the Afghanis in the villages, we did that to show presence, so the Taliban knew that we're there to protect these villagers. Even when we're not there, we're there, right? And oftentimes we did that at great personal sacrifice because we exposed ourselves. We did it during the daytime, and a lot of times, just like my friend Mike that got shot by the sniper, we got attacked frequently. But it was important to make that sacrifice to make sure that these Afghans knew that we loved them and we were there to help them. I say give. Again, it ties into taking care of your community, giving back, giving to people. We always went out. We give medicine. We gave them food. We would actually go out and vaccinate and take veterinarians out with us and treat their goats, their horses, their dogs, to take care of their livestock so that they could be fruitful after we left. Teach. So if you see here this little kid standing there next to me, I'm teaching him how to throw a hand grenade. Now that's a smoke grenade that he has. We started him off on smoke grenades and then worked him up to hand grenades. It's legitimately not a joke. That's what we did. We taught them how to shoot guns, and we taught them how to, because oftentimes we would leave them with stuff so they could protect themselves from the Taliban. The Taliban is a brutal, brutal organization. You have no idea. And it's mostly R-rated, but they are horrible, horrible people with a horrible ideology. And then lastly, communicate. So again, these kids here, they were friends with this kid here. He wasn't in the picture, but they always come out when we were out the range. And we would give them Snickers bars, we'd give them water, and we didn't speak their language. They didn't speak ours, but through eye contact and verbal cues and body language, we communicated with the Afghan people. We had interpreters, but we could communicate with them. They could tell when we give them a thumbs up or winked our eye at them, they were communicating back with us. But communication is important. So, the male model, this guy wanted to leave. Couldn't wait to leave Wellston. This guy here was elated to come home, I'm telling you. I'm so happy that I'm retired and I'm done. And I'm thankful for guys like Jerry and Mr. Tripp who led the way for me. You guys had it way harder than me. I might have deployed 12 times, but you gentlemen, these guys, I'll guarantee you, hands down, they had it way harder than me. I had the most sophisticated equipment. We had overwhelming firepower. And oftentimes, these guys, it was just based on sheer grit and determination that they were able to survive day to day. And seriously, they had it way harder than me. My 12 deployments were nothing compared to just 1 month of some of the stuff they had to do. So, in summary, Wellston shaped me. Wellston was always on my mind. This little town I couldn't wait to get out of. Community I never forgot, and a community that never forgot me. Never forgot me. Look at Donna, 16 years later, I'm here giving this briefing, and I'm just so honored to get to speak to people that I love so much. Your support meant the world to me, and to this day, that remains true. All right? So thank you, Wellston, and is there any questions? I don't know if I made it right on time or not, but...
You're fine.
Okay.
Can I make a statement?
Yes.
Sure.
Of course, I'm one of his biggest fans. We've been friends since we were little, but he does himself no justice. We went to his retirement, and his mom and dad was there. And you have this big room full. If you guys remember the old high school, I'll stand up so everybody can hear me. Remember the old high school, how the big gymnasium was, the seating, that's how it was there. It was full of special operators from all over the world that come to honor Mark. And the colonel did his ceremony. The statement that stuck most in my mind, he said, "This guy is the Michael Jordan of Special Forces. When you get in the military or in the Air Force Special Forces, the first thing you hear is Mark Foster." So that's a pretty big statement. And he doesn't do himself enough justice, even though this is pretty impressive. To hear all these guys say what they said about him, not him, but these guys bragging on him. Of course, he didn't want them to. I mean, it's like, I was all inspired because I'm one of his best friends. Never heard half of those stories. And so it was really cool to get him down here. Thank you for inviting him.
Thank you for your help, Nathan.
It really took 16 years.
I knew I'd eventually get you.
Give or take.